What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. The Chicago Bulls announced recently that Derrick Rose's number one jersey will be officially retired, making him just the fifth Bulls player to receive this distinctive honor. The Rose jersey retirement ceremony will be held during the next season, 2025-26, and details will be announced at a later date. Rose will join Michael Jordan, number 23, Scottie Pippen, number 33, Bob Love, number 10, who recently passed away, of course, Jerry Sloan's number 4, and Bill Russell's number 6. Of course, it was mandated, I think it was back in 2022, 2023, that all number 6s will be retired throughout the NBA after the passing of Bill Russell. So this will be a great honor for Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose played approximately, I think, 15 years in the NBA. He missed 1 year due to injury. And Derrick Rose, of course, wore number 1. So no other Chicago Bull will ever wear that number 1. And President and CEO Michael Reinsdorf shared the news with Rose during an in-person conversation yesterday morning about the jersey retirement, said Derrick is both a hometown hero and a symbol of an entire era of Bulls basketball. Retiring a jersey recognizes a player's impact beyond on-court achievements. It honors individuals who have made extraordinary contributions to the organization and forged deep, lasting connections with fans. It recognizes that emotional bond and the great influence a player has had on the team and organization's identity. We are proud to add Derrick to the elite group of players, Jerry Sloan, Bob Love, Michael Jordan, and Scottie Pippen, whose jerseys have been officially retired by the Chicago Bulls. Rose, the Bulls' former number 1 overall draft pick in the 2008 NBA draft and eventual Rookie of the Year winner, spent 8 seasons in Chicago while amassing one of the most prolific careers in Bulls history. A 3-time All-Star, Rose became the youngest player in league history to win the MVP award in 2011, to go along with all NBA first-team honors that year. He guided the Bulls to the best record, 62-20, in the 2010-11 season, consecutive seasons with the top record in the Eastern Conference, and was part of 7 straight NBA playoff appearances for the Bulls from 2008 to 2015. The Chicago native played in 406 regular season games for his hometown team, posting career averages of 19.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 6.2 assists. Rose holds the 3rd highest assist per game average and 9th highest scoring average in team history. He's one of only 2 Bulls, Michael Jordan 88-89, to record at least 2,000 points and 600 assists in a single season, after recording clips of 25 points per game and 7.7 assists in 2010, 2011. Chicago finished with a record of 245 and 161, winning 60.3% of their games with Rose on the court, leading to the team's first Eastern Conference Finals appearance since 1998, and Rose averaging 27.1 points and nearly 8 assists in 16 games during the 2011 NBA playoffs. Let me tell you something. I know sometimes I come on here and I root for the Milwaukee Bucks, but that's only out of frustration. I started noticing Giannis developing as a talent about 10 years ago. Milwaukee was always one of these small market teams, albeit it is a conference competitor to the Chicago Bulls, but a division competitor, actually. But I like rooting for the underdogs. When I started rooting for the Chicago Bulls back in the late '80s. They were underdogs. They hadn't won anything yet, and I always heard how scoring champions can't win. Blah blah blah. Jordan doesn't make players around him better, and I started rooting for the guy. 'Cause I thought he was the best talent I've ever seen in sports at the time, and I still think he's the most talented basketball player I've ever seen live. But after Michael Jordan and the Bulls, that general nucleus retired. It was some very, very lean years for Chicago Bulls. Very lean years. Then comes Derrick Rose. And I'm skeptical because, man, at the time, the Bulls had been horrible, mediocre to horrible for 10 years. But then comes Derrick Rose. And it wasn't just him. Of course, he had other guys on the team. Initially, it was Ben Gordon, but then ultimately, the general nucleus of Derrick Rose and Luau Deng and Joaquin Noah or Joaquin Noah. I kind of forgot how the hell to pronounce his first name at this point. I think it was Joaquin Noah. You had them. Then, of course, you had Carlos Boozer. That team. Um, for the first time in a very long time, us Bulls fans, we got excited again. It was becoming must see TV to watch the Bulls again. You know what I'm saying? We weren't a perennial doormat for the rest of the Eastern Conference in the NBA. Derrick Rose was exciting to watch. You know, he was box office. He was, you know, the way we look at Russell Westbrook as far as the last few years of his career, the explosiveness and taking it to the rim and all that, that's what Derrick Rose was the first couple of years before the injury. And, you know, until he suffered that career altering injury, I think that Derrick Rose was on a pace to become clearly the second greatest player in Chicago Bulls history. And I think he would, at the very least, he was going to be a top 75 all time player, possibly position himself to be top 50. I think he had that type of upside. But then that injury happened. And I hate to say it. I know maybe I'm being spiteful, but I still to this day point some of the blame at Tom Thibodeau. That's why I've always been real critical of Tom Thibodeau playing a lot of his guys to death. We see it all the time. You know, all his teams, you know, somehow toward the end of the season, these guys get these mysterious injuries. You know, but I still wonder to this day, man, like what would have happened if he could have took the dude out, man. I don't know why Derrick Rose was still playing in that game. The game was already over. Why was he still playing in that game? I'll never get over it. I won't. Because that ruined everything for the Bulls. And more importantly, you know, for many, many years, it caused a lot of pain and frustration for Derrick Rose. A lot of pain and frustration for him to work so hard to come back from these particular injuries, only to be set back by another debilitating injury. And it got to the point where at one point in time, it looked like he may have to retire. And while, you know, the injuries robbed him of a lot of his explosiveness, he worked on his craft to the point where he still was an effective player for many years. You know, for many years, during that time period, while he wasn't as explosive, he worked on his mid-range game. He worked on his outside shooting. The league was becoming more three-point reliant anyway. And Derrick Rose reinvented himself as a very valuable role player. He was a fringe all-star with the Knicks, but then later on, I think he became a role player, like a six-man-a-year caliber player with the Timberwolves. And, you know, afterwards, he was able to remain a very valuable player for different franchises. But Derrick Rose will always be a Chicago Bull to me, man. And, you know, sometimes I used to struggle with, like, well, damn, is he really a Hall of Famer? I mean, he missed so many games. But now when you look at, when you look at his impact, I mean, this guy's from Chicago. And when you look at the impact he had on that Chicago Bulls franchise, he pretty much turned them around. And you wonder, still to this day, if LeBron and Wade and Bosh hadn't created that super team in Miami that was just too much for the Chicago Bulls to overcome, what could have happened? You also wonder what could have happened if the Bulls and Ben Gordon could have worked out a deal and he stayed, giving the Chicago Bulls more offensive firepower. I mean, the Bulls are always a great defensive team, but sometimes their offensive prowess would be a little bit, you know what I'm saying, lacking. These are all thoughts that the Bulls fans have had over the years, man. But kudos to Derrick Rose, who was also celebrated last night in the game against the Knicks. And they had a video tribute. I think it was a 2.5 minute tribute to Derrick Rose. He got very emotional. And the big question is Derrick Rose a Hall of Famer? I mean, look, I've always been a little bit kind of funny about guys who have had a lot of injuries. But when you win an MVP award and when you have been integral to the turnaround of a storied franchise like the Chicago Bulls over the past few years, I mean, that's the only good spot we've had since Michael Jordan retired, was when Derrick Rose was doing his thing, man. And him being that culturally significant to the city of Chicago, then yes, you put him in the Hall of Fame. You got to put him in the Hall of Fame. And, man, I just really hate when these guys who you know would be all-time greats, it just didn't work out for them because of injuries. I hate it, man. I hate when I think of Grant Hill. I hate when I think of Penny Hardaway. I hate when I think of Greg Oden. I hate when I think of Brandon Roy. I hate when I think of Derrick Rose. I hate when I think of all these great athletes, Bill Walton, whose careers were ruined by injuries. I hate when I think of Bo Jackson. Even if they did have an impact to a certain extent, what they could have been was generational talents. But anyway, salute to Derrick Rose. Well deserved. Tell me what you guys think.